Hello, my name is Scott Hunter. I'm the father of Haley Hunter, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes about 5 years ago. It's kind of a weird story, but I was walking home one day. Uh, I was actually, I think, on a little jog, and there's a little lake up by our house, and I was getting ready to go for my last turn, and I saw a little turtle walking across the road, and took the turtle down by the water, and in the process of going down to let it go into this nice little stream area where we found, I believe I walked through a bunch of poison ivy. So we let the little turtle go, and over the next few days, I developed a pretty bad poison ivy rash on my legs and on my arms. Um, and then a few days later, I had eaten some Chinese food or something, and my mouth started to swell up. So I went to like an emergency clinic, and they gave me a shot of a steroid shot and put me on some steroids to help with the inflammation, with the poison ivy and the swelling in my face. Um, Got the shot that night, went to bed that night, and over the course of that night, I slept horribly. I was up about what seemed like every hour. It probably wasn't quite that often. Got up the next morning and went to work. Just didn't feel right. I'm actually a nurse anesthetist, and one of the anesthesia techs that I work with looked at me and said, "You don't look right." And I said, "Yeah, I feel horrible." And I kind of had a feeling something was up with this, with what had been happening. She did a finger stick blood glucose check on me, and my blood sugar was over 400. And normal is 100, so things weren't right. I went home. I called my doctor. I went there, and basically over the course of the next couple of weeks, I found out that I was a type 2 diabetic. When I was first diagnosed with diabetes, I was put on metformin, which is kind of the initial drug that they put everybody on. Um, and it helped a little, but it really wasn't enough to keep my blood sugar in a normal range. I was later put on a drug called Janumet, which is a combination of metformin and another drug called sitagliptin. And was also on a drug called glimepiride. All of them are basically drugs that either help your pancreas to produce more insulin or help your cells recognize the insulin that is there better. Because basically type 2 diabetes is just it's insulin resistance, and that's what I have. The combination of those drugs was working pretty well, and they were monitoring my A1C. They just recently, in the last few months, put me on a drug called Levemir, which is an insulin, and it's the first injectable that I've ever been put on. Um, it's a long-acting insulin product that I take in the evening, and since I've been on that, my blood sugars have been pretty solid. My family does have a history of type 2 diabetes. My mother was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I think, in her late 40s. And other than that, I don't think there's any diabetes on my dad's side of the family, but my mom did have it. No, I have three siblings, none of them have diabetes, so I'm the only one that has it in my family. I'm in the healthcare field. I know I see a lot of people with type 2 diabetes who have uncontrolled diabetes who have lots of problems. I mean, they're having vision problems, they have, peripheral vascular problems, they lose limbs, amputations, a lot of bad stuff can happen. So I was pretty motivated to change my lifestyle. So right away, as soon as I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I changed my diet pretty dramatically. High carb food that, I loved. And I just pretty much stopped eating that stuff. At the time I was diagnosed, I was probably exercising maybe 3 to 4 times a week, and I've probably upped that to more like I probably exercise 5 to 6 times a week now. So those are the biggest changes, dietary changes. When I was diagnosed with diabetes, I probably weighed about 215 pounds, and I would say within the first 3 to 4 months of having type 2 diabetes, I lost, I don't know, 20 to 25 pounds pretty rapidly. So from my diagnosis of weighing about 215, I got myself down to 180 pounds probably over the course of about 6 months, 6 to 9 months. And currently I'm probably right around that range between 175 and 180 pounds. My symptoms aren't real strong. I don't have really big swings in blood sugar, fortunately. Um, High blood sugar, like I said, it's not usually so high that I can really notice it. Um, I don't feel anything. Maybe little more anxiety, a little bit more stress um, in my life when my blood sugar is a little out of control. But I have never had. I don't have really big swings in my blood sugar, so it's not really noticeable for me. I check my blood sugar probably 3 to 4 times a day. I always check it in the morning when I get up. And then typically I'll check it before I exercise just to make sure I'm not too low because when I go out and exercise, I'm going to be burning sugar and the risk is getting low, getting too low. Um, you can survive, you can do fine with a blood sugar that's a little too high, but if it gets really low, I mean, that can be a big problem. So I'll always check it in the morning. Typically in the afternoon before I'm going to exercise, I'll check it. And then if I exercise pretty vigorously, I might check it again when I come home just to make sure I'm not too low, and I might need to eat something else just to kind of keep it in the right range. Sometimes in the evening I'll check it if I've eaten something that maybe that was had if I went out and ate a meal, or if I had a big meal or ate something not strictly in the diabetic diet, I might double check it just one more time. The injectable insulin is probably the biggest problem I had, and it was really a combination of um, me not really eating enough to because my blood sugar was high. I was trying to control it better by not eating a lot, and what happened was is I ended up losing a lot of weight, and I got down to about 170 pounds, which for me is pretty thin. I felt hungry all the time, but I was worried about eating because I knew my blood sugar wasn't under control. So it was kind of playing with my head a little bit, and then I went in and had my A1C checked, and it was up to 9, which was the absolute highest it has ever been since I've been diagnosed. My original blood sugar when I was diagnosed was in the low 8s, and it had been pretty well controlled in the 7. That's when we made the decision to go on the injectable insulin, and I think it was the right decision. Since then, I've been able to um, put the weight back on that I had lost, and I'm able to eat more, and I feel a lot better. So that's probably the biggest incident.